But as part of the bribe, and I think that's the only word that I could describe it, the bribe, government, as part of Three Waters, was to give all of councils throughout New Zealand a 1.5 billion sum of money, which they call better off funding. That better off funding was meant to be councils on anything but water. And it was a bribe. It was sort of like, oh, we're taking all your assets away from you, whatever they're worth, and in some cases it would be worth billions of dollars worth of assets. We're taking those away from you. We haven't paid any of them. Your ratepayers, we're taking them anyhow. And we're going to give you some money that you can spend on anything you like. And as a result of last week's announcement that those 4 water entities would now become 10, and that there'd be a 2-year delay before this transition is going to occur. Money that was left of $1.5 billion, which I think was over about $1 billion, didn't get transferred to those councils. Now, one of the councils that stood up really, really early, led by their mayor, but as I understand the decision was just passed by barely, was Waimate Council, who would have thought could have handled some of that better off funding to do anything they like, rejected it. And on the show this afternoon, we are interviewing the mayor, because he must be feeling just at the moment, just quietly, and welcome to the show, His Worship, the mayor of Waimate District Councils. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
You must be feeling just a little bit justified at the moment, vindicated, must you, as a result of what happened last week?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, put it that way. But I don't know about vindicated, Michael. Listen, our position hasn't changed since day one, and that is that we don't want any part of this reform in the proposed model that was initially the 4 entities and now the 10 entity model. And quite frankly, I think, you hit the nail on the head when I think you said this was a bribe. And I guess we have a few principles down here that we stick by our guns. And I can't see that 1 minute you can stand up and say, we don't want any part of this, but we'll take the cheque.
Yeah, it was sort of, it's interesting to contrast you with my local council, which is the Central Otago District Council, and a mayor who's very, very strongly supportive of the reforms. But at Waimate, you would cease to exist, wouldn't you, if they took away all your water assets?
It would make life difficult for us. I don't know whether we would cease to exist. They kept telling us that, we're going to take all your assets away, but we're going to give you something else. But I've yet to see anything about what they're going to replace it with in any solid sort of tangible form that we can actually look at. So it would be quite threatening to us. But this is not about us not existing. If our ratepayers were keen for us to amalgamate, well, that's what would happen. But we went out to our ratepayers prior to this decision and asked them, should we take the funding? And there was a clear indication from the majority of our ratepayers, don't touch it.
Right. Now, I think you passed that very, very narrowly. Was it 5 votes to 4 or something like that, not to take the funding? What was the argument of the other 4, that some funding is better than nothing? If they're going to give us free money, we may as well take it.
Well, and listen, we thought long and hard about this. All of us thought long and hard about it, because there was some serious implications in not taking it. And as far as listen, the money that they were offering us would have been very, very helpful for doing footpaths and roading and bits and pieces like that. But I guess it came back to how can you stand up 1 minute and say we're not in favour of this, but as soon as they start offering money around. And we just didn't like the clauses that were in the agreements. The fact that we couldn't oppose the Three Waters reform was one of the clauses that was in the agreement. So we weren't prepared to.
Oh, so is that right? So if you took the money, you had a contractual obligation to cease your opposition to Three Waters in toto.
Well, they tried to tell us that we could still have our opinion as to the Three Waters, but it was in the funding agreement that we wouldn't oppose the Three Waters. We wouldn't make any derogatory statements around the Three Waters stuff. I can't remember the exact wording of it now, but it was just something that didn't sit well with us.
No, understandable. For those councils in your neck of the woods, so I guess we're talking about Timaru, they've been very much opposed. I think the mayor's been leading the charge there against Three Waters in the courtroom. Mackenzie would be another one, which is based in Tekapo and Fairley and Twizel. Is there any thought to you guys getting together though in the future in terms of the provision of water services, or are the needs so diverse that that's just not possible?
No, we've already spoken with our neighbours, Michael, and what was one of the things that first happened when the Three Waters reform came in is DIA were offering money for councils to work together to try and come up with better solutions. And we actually approached DIA and said we would like some funding to examine how a model of Mackenzie, Waimate, Timaru, possibly Ashburton or possibly Waitaki may work together to enhance our water services. And we're told we're not thinking big enough, and no, we wouldn't get any money. But
they had an agenda from day one.
Yeah, and we already work with our neighbours. Like we have a joint roading contract with Timaru. Our water boys go up and assist the Mackenzie District Council. So we're already in South Canterbury. We work together closely anyway for the good of the district or the good of the region. And we have no issue with working with our neighbours to deliver a better service. But the crux of the matter is that our ratepayers own these assets, and I don't believe that the government has the right to just take it off them.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But the next issue is from where to from here, I guess, for you. So, I mean, the bribe now has been taken away. It's sort of like they said, no, if you're going to have 4 entities, we're going to have 10. I guess you'd end up, where are you ending up? Are you ending up in the Otago Southern one, or are you ending up in a big Canterbury one?
No, we're Canterbury West Coast, and my understanding is we would be in Canterbury West Coast.
Right. So the problem still exists, though. I'm still trying to get economy of scale for a small place like Waimate, or even for Mackenzie. You're a long way, Mackenzie's even further away from where your major waterworks are going to be. So you're still going to have purpose-built, locally based waterworks, aren't you? Whether it's in terms of delivering water or taking it away.
Oh, absolutely. Just because you amalgamate or take all the assets and put them in one base, the assets are still in the same place. The water still comes out of the same hole in the ground, whether it's owned by a mega entity or the district council. We have 7 rural water supplies that supply drinking water to our rural customers. 85% of that water goes down the throat of cows and sheep. So why would you chlorinate and fluoridate all that water? It just doesn't make any sense. And we're working on that.
Right. So the court case now, I understand it's being appealed. We talked to Helen Warboys earlier in the week about appealing the judicial review decision. I think they're going to the Court of Appeal from memory. There's a 2-year delay. From your point of view as the Mayor of Waimate, what does the 2-year delay mean? How are you interpreting what that means to you? Does that mean you still have to plan for the next 2 years in terms of your waterworks? Does it mean you do no work at all? What does it mean?
Yeah. Next question. It's a really interesting one because a month ago we've just started our planning processes for the next 12 months and for our LTPs, our long-term plans. which are coming up in another 12 months' time. And we were told that the water assets were not to be part of that planning process. So, of course, we've started our run-up to our planning process, leaving the three waters out. Now they're back in again. So it's incredibly disruptive. Any delay like this, the whole shambles around the whole exercise really. But the delay is disruptive. You know, we've got staff now that's sitting, going, well, what happens to me? And 1 minute they're saying I was going to work for the water entity. Now that's been delayed 2 years. Where it's difficult enough to attract staff to local government as it is without throwing all this in the mix as well. So basically, I guess we're back to planning as usual. We have to plan for those assets because we've still got to maintain them. We still have to pay for them. We still have to run them for however many years until they're supposedly handed over to these 10 entities.
If I was mayor, though, I mean, that's because I'm a pragmatist, I'd be going, I don't think we'll spend too much money on water assets in the long-term plan because of the uncertainty of whether or not there is going to be a water entity or not. Would you be approaching it that way?
No, we won't be, because I want what's best for our ratepayers. We've had a plan in place, and we've always had a plan in place to improve our drinking water, and we're pushing ahead with that as per normal. Because come the end of the day, it doesn't matter who runs them. I just want the best, cleanest possible drinking water for our residents. So we're just pushing ahead with our plans as though it was life as normal.
Now, the other thing that government have said about this is that you can't possibly sustain yourself financially into the future irrespective. Their argument is you're so small, and many councils like you, that the amount of work that you're going to have to do on your infrastructure will be so great that it won't be able to be supported, and the burden upon your ratepayers will be so immense as to essentially drive you almost into bankruptcy. What's your response to that claim from the government and from central ministry officials?
Well, I disagree with it, obviously. Like I was actually talking to some friends the other day when the figures came out with the 10 entities, and I think our water charge is going to end up at about, $2,400 per annum, something around about that. And I said currently our water charges to our customers make up probably about, so no more than say $400 to $500 of a $2,000 rate bill. So if we take those water assets away, the reduction in rates to our ratepayers is only going to be maybe $300 to $400 a year, and then we're going to land them with $2,400 a year in water charges. So how are our ratepayers going to be better off? And I know that they're saying that this is in 2050. I'd love to see an economist that can tell me what the dollar's going to be worth in 2050, let alone trying to project out water costs. And that's going to make up, by the time you pay rates and water charges, I'm really concerned for those on fixed incomes, our elderly, and they're going to be forking out, anything up to nearly, 30 to 40% of their total income in rates charges. So it's a real concern, Michael. It's a real worry for us. And I think that there's efficiencies to be made with councils being able to work with their neighbours to better deliver services. And I think that's our thought is the way to move forward is for us to talk with our neighbours and make efficiencies that way.
Yeah, but as you say, so the increase from $400, you're saying $300 or $400 to $2,400 is, as you rightly say, massive. But what I'm struggling to do is, how did it get to that? Is the argument that your infrastructure is so underinvested currently, or does that mean that your ratepayers are subsidising some derelict council somewhere else?
Well, and the thing is, I guess the big thing is that we don't believe that the figures are correct from day one. That we think that they were grossly overestimated the costs on what was required. When they did the initial request for information or RFIs, we all had to submit. We put two in. We put one in for our urban area and one for our rural area because they're like chalk and cheese, the way that they're delivered. And there's just massive differences. Well, the first thing they did when they got those, they lumped them together and took them at one. So that skewed all the figures from day one. So, I'm sorry, but I don't have the confidence that perhaps the government has in their figures that they've produced.
No, understandable. So let me get this right. How did you find out they'd done that? Is that because they told you, or did you have to go and find that information through other sources?
My understanding is, we found out through our staff, through the managers that had gone and done all that work, that they were just lumped together.
All right. So you're carrying on business as usual. Your long-term plan to say, I've always loathed the long-term plans, but you've got to do them every 3 years. The idea, isn't it interesting? Local government's got to be planning 10 years ahead. Central government only has to plan 12 months. I've always found that a bit bizarre.
Well, we have to do 30-year infrastructure plans, Michael. No, I don't see the government doing 30-year infrastructure plans. No, it's crazy.
Now, for now, I guess all you can do is wait until election day, yeah? Because that's the key day for Waimate District Council, your future and the future of your water infrastructure.
Yes, I agree, and not just us, but there's a lot of councils around in the exactly same position. And I heard your preamble, and we're fifth from the bottom for smallest. Mackenzie is small, and I think that there's a couple up in North Island that are small enough, so we're not quite on the bottom, but not far away.
All right, and finally, wallabies. They have become associated with Waimate. You've adopted them, in actual fact, as a sort of a marketing tool or I love your wallaby. Took my kids to it about a month ago. The wallaby tree you've got with the old lady there. You can feed them. Yep. Actually, it's a marvellous little tourism feature. She's getting on now, so it'll be interesting to see who will take over that in the future, if anybody. But I'm on the Otago Regional Council, so we're spending about $1 million to kill the one wallaby that does stray across the border. Tell me, how do the locals regard the wallaby? With affection? Are they regarded as a pest, or are they regarded as both a pest and affectionately?
Well, they're both really, because we've got, they're definitely regarded as a pest. And obviously we've got Environment Canterbury that has a containment area that they're trying to keep the wallabies contained into. And they spend a lot of money around the edge of that containment area. We've been pushing for a lot more work to be done inside the area. You've got to start knocking them off inside the area if you don't want them to spread, and they are spreading. But it's the only place, I guess, in the world where you can come in, you can view them, you can pet them, you can shoot them, and you can eat them. So we have a full range of services available, Michael.
Good on you.
You can, no matter which way you want to do it, we've got it down here.
And tell me, can I still get wallaby pie in the main street of Waimate? Is it still available?
Yes, the barn, the restaurant in Waimate I'm pretty sure they're still doing wallaby pies. So as I said, you can do anything with them down here.
What do they taste like?
A bit like a cross between sort of beef and goat. They're quite nice. They're quite a mild flavour.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for talking to us, Craig. Appreciate your time, and know your next 6 months are going to be very uncertain. But good on you, and good on you for sticking by your principles as well. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's Craig Rowley. You too. Thank you. That's Craig Rowley, the Mayor of Waimate District Council.